Have you ever wondered why the months are named what they are? Well, if you want to satisfy that itch in the back of your head, look no further than this very video. But before we get into that, remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. What I discovered was that the months on our modern calendars are basically the exact same as the ones the Romans had. When I first started making this video, I thought, hey, I know some of the months we have were taken from the Romans, like July, which is named after Julius Caesar, but surely a few come from other people, right? But I almost immediately found that that is not the case, which is epic because I love the Roman Empire. Anyway, to begin with, let's start with the first month of the year, January, which was called Mensis Januarius, or the month of Janus, by the Romans. But I've got to get into a bit of background info for a sec because it's necessary to understanding the Roman calendar. As it turns out, January was not always the first month of the year. You see, March was actually the first month of the first iteration of the Roman calendar, which, according to legend, was created by its founder and first king, Romulus. In fact, originally there was no January, or February for that matter. That's because the Roman calendar revolved around agricultural seasons. So the early Roman calendar didn't feature any winter months because working in the fields was impossible at that time of year. But that supposedly changed during the reign of the semi-legendary second king of Rome, Numa Pompilius. I love their names. According to Livy, he created both January and February around 713 BC, and then slapped them on to the end of the year, meaning January was originally just the second last month of the year, behind February. There seem to be two stories about how January and February wound up at the start of the year. One possibility is that in 450 BC, a tyrannical 10-man commission, known as the Second Decemvirate, put those 2 months there while they were completing the 12 Tables, Rome's first law code. Another story goes that 3 centuries later, in 153 BC, Roman consuls began entering office on the 1st of January instead of March 15th, when they had previously done so, and that's what made it the first day of the year. Supposedly, this was a result of there being an urgent need to dispatch a consul to aid Roman troops struggling in Hispania during the Lusitanian War, so the consuls entered into office 2 months earlier than usual that year. This wasn't continued in the Middle Ages, though, when certain feast days marked the beginning of the new year, like the Feast of the Annunciation on March 25th and Christmas. But oddly enough, they still held on to the Roman calendar, which put January the 1st, well, first. In the 16th century, January the 1st began marking the new year again in Europe, and this was referenced to as circumcision style, given that the Feast of the Circumcision falls on January the 1st, which I find pretty hilarious. So I'm sure you're begging to know what January is actually named after, right? Well, it's derived from the name of the Roman god Janus, and this is rather fitting given that he was the god of beginnings and transitions. He himself got this name because Janus is Latin for gate or arched passageway, which makes sense because he was also the guardian of doors and gates. As I'm sure you can see, he has 2 faces, which may symbolize the rising and setting sun, indicating he may have originally been a solar deity, which he could use to see both the future and the past simultaneously, meaning he's always stuck in the past, but also in the future. Another neat thing about Janus is that his temple in Rome was closed when Rome was at peace, and open when Rome was at war. The Romans called February Mensis Februarius. It got its name from the word februare, which means to purify, and the word februa, which refers to the rites and instruments which were used during the Roman purification festival referred to as februa or februatum, which occurred on February the 15th and is better known as Lupercalia. This was a genuinely crazy festival. Step over, Burning Man. So, this was a crazy festival because it consisted of naked young aristocratic men running around Rome with goatskin thongs. They weren't wearing them, they just had these strips of goatskin, which were apparently one of the aforementioned februa, and they struck whoever they met with these thongs. Apparently, women would deliberately get in their way to get struck on the hand with these februa because they believed it would help them get pregnant. The Romans certainly were an eccentric bunch. According to the Roman poet Ovid, who wrote a poetic account of the Roman calendar, the word februare was connected to an Etruscan word for purging, but it may have also been Sabine in origin. March, originally Mensis Martius, was apparently named that by Romulus in honor of his divine father, the Roman god of war Mars, which makes more sense when you remember that March would have then been the first month in the Roman calendar. This is also the month in which military campaigns interrupted by winter were resumed. And interestingly enough, despite the fact that at the latest March was made the third month of the year in 153 BC, Roman mosaics from late antiquity still depict March as the first month of the year. But March 25th marked the beginning of each year in the British Isles and their colonies all the way up until 1752, when Lord Chesterfield forced the adoption of the Gregorian calendar. I've actually mentioned Lord Chesterfield before in the very first episode of this series. That's because he was one of the first Europeans to mention paper being used by people to wipe their asses. What a revolutionary. April was originally known as Mensis Aprilis, and there are two theories regarding how it got that name, which just goes to show that the origins of the names of the months were debated even amongst the Romans themselves. The first holds that Aprilis' name was derived from the Latin word aperire, or I don't know how to pronounce Latin, I'm sorry, meaning to open, or aperio, meaning eye open, and that it was meant to evoke flower buds opening, because of course that's what happens in springtime. Ovid reports in his Fasti that April was named from the open season, because spring then opens all things. I don't know if he spoke like that, but I hope he did. But another legend has it that Romulus named it after Aphrodite, mother of the mythical ancestor of the Roman people, the Trojan hero Aeneas. May was originally called Mensis Maius, and its origins are debated. It could have been derived from the name of the Greek goddess/nymph Maia, who was equated with the Roman goddess Bona Dea. She was an earth goddess and oversaw the growth of plants. Additionally, her festival was held on the first day of the month. But according to legend, Maius, not unlike Aprilis, could have also gotten its name from Romulus. After all, he founded the city, he can do what he wants with its months, right? He supposedly named May and June after the two divisions of Rome's male citizen body, the Maiores, its elders, and the Juniores, its younger members. June was originally known as Mensis Junius, and it either derived its name from the previously mentioned Juniors or the goddess Juno, the consort of Rome's chief deity, Jupiter, and the counterpart of the Greek goddess Hera. She was also a patron of women and the namesake of Canada's bootleg version of the Grammys. July and August aren't named after gods, religious festivals, natural phenomenon, or whatever else Romulus could come up with. No. July and August are named after two of Rome's greatest gigachads, Julius Caesar and his adopted son, Augustus. And it wasn't completely megalomaniacal, you know. They weren't replacing names derived from Roman religion with their own because, you see, all the months after June were originally just named after what number month they were prior to January and February being slotted into the beginning of the year. So July was originally called Quintilis, after the Roman term for 5, and August was originally Sextilis, after the Roman term for 6. Quintilis was changed to Julius in the year of its namesake's assassination, 44 BC, in his honor. It was his birth month, and a comet appeared in the July following Caesar's assassination, which was seen as a sign of him having ascended to godhood. This was complained about by Cicero, but you have to keep in mind that the year previously, Julius Caesar had made the Roman calendar line up with the solar year by creating the Julian calendar. But you don't hear Cicero praising that, although Caesar was also responsible for the calendar being 3 months out of whack in the first place, but whatever. Sextilis was renamed to August in 8 BC in honor of Augustus, who was still alive and reigning as princeps at the time, because this was the month in which he conquered Egypt and first became consul. Other later emperors attempted to rename the remaining months in their honor, but this was never permanent. For example, according to Cassius Dio, the late 2nd century AD Emperor Commodus renamed all the months in his honor, renaming them after the various titles he assumed. This is just one of the numerous absurd reforms he made as emperor. Okay, let's get through the last few months of the year in a lightning round. September was originally just called September and was derived from the name of the Roman numeral for 7. However, the late 1st century emperor Domitian dubbed it Germanicus in honor of his victories against the Germanic tribes. Just for reference, Germanicus is an epithet that emperors often bestowed on themselves for defeating the Germans. October was derived from the term for 8, of course. November was derived from the term for 9, and December was derived from the term for 10. That about wraps things up. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos like this one. However, as we enter a new year, I'm going to focus more on the history behind places and people, instead of just objects, especially famous landmarks, countries, especially the obscure ones out there, and extinct cultures and nations. So, see you in the next video.